Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well and welcome back to the Velvet Lounge Life. Yes, you are looking at some glittery beauties and I am here today to talk about something I think is relatively important, and that's the difference between vintage, antique versus new. And also, what are some of the differences you should be looking for? So I decided, because just like everyone else, 4 million times I've been offered invites to purchase items off of Temu. So this time I decided to do so. And I noticed that they had some beautiful, sparkly, even unique shapes and offerings as far as brooches go. I had a couple curiosities. One was, what are the sizes of these brooches? The other was, what is the material that they're made from? And my final one was, how are they made? So let's quickly talk about this. To make things fair, I selected some of my vintage and antique brooches that are unsigned, because all of the Temu brooches are unsigned. And just to also make you aware that I did order more than the couple of examples you're going to see here. And I picked out those that I thought were the very best of the examples that I ordered. So you can tell the backs of these brooches, some have similarities, some are very different. And I will say immediately, the antique and vintage ones are the most unique when it comes to the backs. It's one of the ways that makers could identify themselves, and also sometimes patents were pending, or they just specialized in making a certain type of brooch on a certain type of backing. So you have Juliana, you have Weiss, you have so many other makers. And I'll even mention a newer, well, not new, but really, I would say 1960s, 70s, early 80s. You have Sarah Coventry, who had various types of backings, and even the way they're hallmarked is different so that you can decipher when they were made. So like I said, I purposely chose things here that had 0 signatures or hallmarks on the back, just to make things fair. So the first thing we're going to look at is this dragonfly. It's big, it's bold. This is like a 4-inch brooch. It is a big one. And from its eyes to the tip of the tail, that is probably 3.5 inches. But from wing to wing, it's a little over 4 inches. And as you can see, what was used as quote unquote rhinestones, they're bright, the colors are varied. It's something I would look for, obviously, if I was collecting something vintage, antique, etc. But a simple tap of this brooch on your tooth will reveal that these are not glass, quote unquote, fake rhinestones. These are made out of some sort of plastic. And so that's a huge difference versus what is truly vintage or antique. The funny thing is, some of their descriptions described the brooches as being vintage. And obviously it's a total lie, when these things were made probably in the last, I would say, I'll even give it 3 to 1 years. So they can't obviously be vintage. They have to be new. Why, they could say vintage style, but they don't. They simply say vintage. And come on, we know that everything on Temu is brand new. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. I'm just saying describe it correctly. Also, there is no description when it comes to what they make these out of, other than saying metal. metal for the backs. And this is like a spelter type metal. So it's a little bit softer than a hard metal, but it is metal. And they use mostly a C-clasp when it comes to the pinning mechanism, as you can see. And I will even cheat and show you that's the same on this big bug or beetle brooch. And this one has to measure close to 3 inches. That's the other thing. Their brooches are extremely large. And it does have a version of enamel, but not the classic enameling that you're used to. In the same style when it comes to the stoning, I guess is what I'll call it. Yes, these look shiny. They look like rhinestones, but they're not actual rhinestones. And then we'll come over to the frog. And this frog is so gorgeous, but wow, it's a big one. I put it on top of this purse so you can get an idea of scale. I'll put it back down here. It's a big one. It's a beauty. I think it's pretty. And I will say, for the type of materials that are used, which are low, obviously the lowest or lower grade, these are all made very well. The thing I would be concerned with is replacing a lost stone. There is a way to seal these stones in so that they're less likely to be lost, and maybe I'll show that to you in a future video. And I also have to experiment with doing it on, these fake rhinestones as well. And here you can see that the pinning mechanism is so long, it's slightly bowed. But partially that's due to how girthy this brooch is. This one is about 3 inches long, and going across, it's about 2.5, almost 3 inches, to be honest, about 2 3/4. And then we come to the rabbit, which has so much personality. And it almost looks like it's hallmarked in the face right there in the center, but it's not. And this metal actually seems to be harder than the other metals, so I think this is a better quality metal. The thing is, how safe are these metals? Are there any leads in this stuff or other harmful things? I have zero ideas. Once again, similar pinning mechanism there. And then something else to notice, which we'll talk about more in this brooch, and this goes for the other Temu brooches, nothing is claw set. So that's another signal as to whether or not you have a high quality brooch that you could pay a little bit more for and not feel bad about it, or if you have a brooch is pretty and wearable, but obviously you need to be more careful with. And once again, look at all of these little tiny stoning situations. You would want to seal this in, because obviously once you start losing one of these little tiny quote unquote stones, you know that usually there's going to be another and another and another. Next thing you know, you have it in a jewelry box or somewhere and you're not wearing it. But there is, like I said, a method for sealing these in so that they never move. Now let's look at some of our real antique and vintage pieces. So there were a variety of ways to secure rhinestones. And look at this. This is such a beauty. And they used what I call the pinning mechanism. And you could see some of the pin tops. They look like little gold circles on top. And it goes down through the brooch behind the backing. And it gets covered with this disc, which is secured by those 2 bigger metal grommets that you see to hold everything together and to hide the pinning mechanisms on the back that attach each individual rhinestone bead to this brooch. So that is one method that you will see. Another is like with this brooch, you can see this is what the back looks like. It's a big old, what I call a big, this is what they call a big beauty. And actually all of these, other than maybe this one, would be deemed big beauties because they are huge. So this one looks kind of like a fancy starfish, but just imagine the craftsmanship to claw set every single one of these rhinestones. It's the only reason that this old brooch has survived the decades upon decades. Thank you, Grandma. And this is a heavy one, so you would want to wear this with a sturdy jacket or a hardy dress, not something that's like a light silk or a light cotton or a light linen, because it will definitely pull the garment down to one side because that's how heavy it is. But once again, you're always looking for that claw setting or pin setting. Here I have one that was given to me by a friend. Let me make sure this one isn't signed. Nope, it's not. I believe this is a Juliana. There's a couple Julianas here. And once again, even the giant, I'm sorry, I just did that. My hair is in the video. Perfect. That's an issue with the claw set pieces. Sometimes your hair does get stuck in them, so you have to pull it right out. But with this one, you can see that everything in it is claw set. It has this beautiful textured rhinestones in it. There's a name for this style of stone, and I can't remember what it is. And also you have these oblong, I guess I would say, sort of elongated brooches rhinestones as well on the side, and that olive green set in this gorgeous frame. And look at the back. That is a lot of work. I can't remember the name. I should have looked this up, and I do have it written down. There's two names. One begins with a D, and they were the makers of this type of brooch. So many of the brooches I'm showing you that are the old and antique and vintage ones here, you can actually look them up and figure out probably who made them. And look at the back of this one, how it's framed. And they did this so that obviously light could come through and you could see, you know, a little bit of the garment through it, but also it just sort of brought some light into the brooch, because this one is a smoky quartz in color. It almost looks black, but it's literally a smoky quartz with a Aurora Borealis bigger rhinestone in the center. But once again, every single thing on here, every rhinestone is claw set. And something that you could do to maintain your jewelry that's like this is just go through, you're watching TV, you're chatting with the guys, the girls, and just make sure that you have jeweler's tools to do this. I mean, you could do this with other tools, but I'm just going to recommend the best. And just make sure your claws are all like clasped together, because as these get hung on clothing or in hair, you might accidentally pull like a little bit of one of the claws back a little bit. And obviously that could loosen it up and you could lose a rhinestone. And that's just a way of making sure that everything stays tight and right. Don't over tighten. You just are making sure things are tight and right. And I also just realized that there are some clear rhinestones, 4 big ones that circle that center Aurora Borealis. And then the last one that we'll look at today, we'll look at the back a little closer, is this one, which has some similarities to a couple of the others you just saw. Like multiple methods are being used to house the rhinestones. But this is an antique one, and this was given to me by a wonderful friend as well. I have friends, especially the family that cared, that knows that I collect and wear. I actually wear these items, And so they will give me one, as on occasion as a gift, or obviously if someone unfortunately is no longer alive, usually well before they died, they have given me their whatever it is that they wanted to give me. Some inherited from my mother, of course, grandmother, etc. And then I also, when I'm out at sales, will look for these, but I have a very low budget so that I can make sure I don't end up with 50,000 brooches. But I probably have over 1,000, if not more, probably maybe closer to 12 to 1,500. And I will wear them in rotation. Wear one, put it away, and kind of like rotate in and out. Take some, put them in my jewelry box, take some out of the jewelry box. I have a whole method. But this is one of my favorites. It's sort of like a swag. But once again, as you can see, every rhinestone has been claw set from these large center stones, which are round and brilliant, to those that are more of I think this is called a princess cut or whatever it's called. But there's like 3 different shapes in here, and every single one of them is housed beautifully. And that's why these brooches have survived decades. And they've done so without needing any sort of reinforcements. Because like I said, when it comes to the Temu brooches, I actually can see these being collectible in many decades. How many, I don't know. Or if Temu goes out of business. So I'm not saying that people should not collect them or buy them. The prices are so low that you will be like, wow, why are they so inexpensive? Well, now you know it's the type of material. These are not made from glass, which is what rhinestones are. These are not precious or semi-precious materials. They're made from very inexpensive materials. But look at them. The sizes are huge. And let me do something. So I went and got an American 50-cent piece. This is a silver piece from 1967. It has a certain, I can't remember how much silver is in there, but it's silver. And so I just wanted to show that near this giant $50, like how large these brooches are. So 0 of these brooches are shrinking violets. The smallest one is this sparkly one right here. But, what can I say? I'll say, okay, in conclusion, 1, if you can figure out the exact materials that are in the Temu brooches for safety's sake, that would be a smart thing to do. Because if they are made from dangerous materials, that's something that you need to think about and consider. Also, I know that there are people obsessed with uranium glass, which is an incredibly common glass that was used right up through part of the 1970s and backwards. So there are billions of pieces of that. You can find shards of glass on foreshores that will glow if you put a black light to them. These brooches, obviously, from Temu are not glowing because they're not made from glass. So you have to consider, do you want to collect brooches that are not made from glass? Some people do. I like these. I selected these designs specifically because of the subject matter. Also, do not allow children to, I would not allow children to handle or to wear, or even if I am instructing them to deal with these Temu brooches, simply because obviously if things are just glued on, which is what these are, and some of them may even be heat treated on, and obviously this one is one that I suspect used heat as well as glue to attach things. That means that just throwing it on the floor, you know, using a fingernail to constantly pick at it, etc., items will easily come off. So these are just things to consider, but as you as an adult, you know, want to wear, collect, handle these, then obviously that's your prerogative, just like it's my prerogative. So hopefully this was helpful. Please leave any questions you have below. I would love to hear what your feedback is on this subject. And also, do you have any Temu brooches? And what are your thoughts on them? If you had them for a while, are they still intact? Because that's one thing, of course, I don't know yet, is how long these will last if I wear them regularly enough to see how they wear, because wear and tear is important. That's why these brooches that are actual, you know, vintage and antique brooches have survived so many decades, is because they were so well made. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe to the channel. Also, please just say hello if you don't have any questions or anything. Like I said, slowly but surely, I'm back in the swing of things, and I would love to hear from you all. Share this video, and if you're not subscribed, welcome. Please click that subscribe button. Thank you.